Alright, I am going over my 2.3 liter Duratec Ford Ranger engine. I got this truck for a song, thought, yay, I'm mechanically inclined, I can replace an engine. Did a whole bunch of YouTube research, and I want to preface with, I am not a mechanic. I am a long-time auto body and paint antique restoration guy. Been doing it for 25 or so years. I'm very mechanically inclined, but not a mechanic. I can't afford a mechanic, so I've got manuals all over the place and YouTube to go to, and I just do what I can and we see where we get. So when I got this truck, it's a 2002 Ford Ranger. It's got the 5-speed manual transmission, and the previous owner had loaned the truck out, and it was not taken very well care of by whoever borrowed it. So that engine's toast. It still rotated, had a really bad rod knock, and thankfully we were able to use most of the stuff off of it. But in my research, I couldn't find anything that said anything other than all Duratecs are the same, they'll all interchange. Nobody really went into detail on what the real differences were. So I have found all of those the hard way and figured I should probably take a minute, go over some of those things, and just put it out there that they're not a direct swap. And if you don't have an engine with pretty much everything good outside of the block and heads, you're just not going to get there. If you don't have a shop full of tools and the ability to adapt and overcome, I guess, then this is quite the project. So let's go over some of the things that have given issue. Don't mind that matrix. I've got projects everywhere. This is the old motor. Everywhere you look, you can see signs that it was kind of tired. Look inside the water pump there. It's pretty grody. So we have learned a whole lot about these. And what I have found is literally everything that bolts on to this motor. This is the one that came out of the 2002 Ford Ranger. This one came out of a 05, I believe. Yeah, I think it was an 05. Yeah, that's not telling me. Okay, so I believe it was a 2005 Escape front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. Completely different. So, my pile of parts, intake is different, oil pump is different. Well, this is oil filter, I guess. This is the pump. It bolts in underneath, pan goes around it. This was actually one of the biggest surprises in the whole thing. Oil pan is different. The location of the dipstick, different. There's front cover, different. There's pulley here. On the other one, this has the mount because it's a side mount engine in the front wheel drive. The PCV, this is water port stuff from the back of the engine. Like I said, I'm not a mechanic. I'm not going to tell you exactly what all this stuff is. Both of these parts came from the very back of the engine. They're not the same. Another pulley, not the same. Thermostat, holy cow. These are supposed to be like $15. They're like $150 and more, because you don't just buy the thermostat. You buy this whole plastic piece of crap here. And I guess it just is what it is. So none of this stuff from the motor that I bought. Now, this motor had 80,000 miles on it. That's one of the big reasons that I bought it. And it came certified with a 6-month warranty as I've tore stuff apart, everything has looked very good. I'm actually quite impressed with how nice the internals of the engine look. But all of that pile came off of this engine, and I can't use it. The other things, valve cover, different. Fuel rail, different. I'll probably use the injectors, but intake was different. Exhaust was different. Obviously, side mount to a rear wheel drive, they're going to have differences, but in all of my research, I didn't find any of that stuff on YouTube or in forums or any of that. But you can see, just looking at the valve cover here, completely different. It doesn't really matter that one's plastic and one's aluminum, but ports are different, plugs are different. Thankfully, all the bolts line up correctly. So what we have left to do on this one is we're going to pull off the intake, pull the fuel rail, and pull the valve cover, get all those cleaned up, and get them swapped over here. I've tried to leave that on as long as possible because of all the wiring that's done there. I want to be able to remember where everything goes. This stupid little PCV cover thing here, everything that bolted on had to be swapped over. Okay, so I'm a liar. Water pump, the water pump interchanges between the two. Here's the pulley that comes on the rear wheel drive that does not come on a front wheel drive. And there's a whole lot of information that seems really hard to actually get a grasp on. I had already pulled off one of the pulleys for the crank, thinking that maybe they're going to be like the old school 2.3 with a key, so timing should be pretty simple. That is definitely not the case. This is how I found out the water pumps do interchange. This one is good. It does turn. That's cute, but look how nasty it is there. It's cleaner on the outside, but the inside's pretty grody. I'm going to keep this as a backup just in case. I'm sure they're not all that expensive, but even the pulleys, they are not the same. One's significantly bigger than the other. This is the old one. So old motor is the Ranger motor. It came out of the Ranger when I bought it. New one from the Escape. And even the pulleys. This is the pulley for the water pump. Bigger from the Ranger, smaller from the Escape. Another thing that was a surprise to me, this is crankshaft pulley bolt. This is only used once. They say replace it if you pull it. So they're not that hard to find. I found mine online. It came with the stupid little gasket in there. In fact, the new one is right here. Comes with shiny little one-time use spacer deal in there, and the big fat spacer. One-time use, that's what you get. So when you go to remove this pulley, really all you have to do is lock up the engine, whether you go off of the flywheel, which is what lots of the videos showed to do, or another way. I don't have a flywheel on the back of this engine. I was stupid and didn't swap it. So that'll be the last thing that I do before putting the engine in. But when you go to do it, you're just going to unscrew that bolt and it pulls right off of there. Okay, this is the one that came off. So check this out. It slides on. Of course, now it's being a pain. Alright, probably easier to show you here. there is no key. So it will work all the way around the crankshaft. No key. It just slips and slides. I'm working one-handed here. I don't want to mess any of this stuff up. We're hoping to be putting this in tomorrow. But pull that off. You just pull the one bolt. It slides right off of there. And then, how do you get the timing right? All right. This right here is a stopper. There's another plug that is in there from the factory. Let's look on this engine. It's right here. Smaller head. It's just a shorter version of this. This is a bolt with threads and a long dowel, and you run it in, turn the engine over, and it'll stop at top dead center. Now, that is not designed to hold anything. So the other part that you need is this guy right here. Got mine at Esslinger. It will line up the cams and not allow them to move. So that lines that part up. That's set back down. So now my cams are lined up. My crank is stopped at top dead center. And you've got to line up, I think it's on the 9th tooth from this gap. You just count them out. There's plenty of videos that'll show you how to set the timing. And then you need another special tool. This guy right here, where you will hold this This will go in here somehow. Of course it doesn't fit, and I get to learn that right now. So it's supposed to slide in there to those little slots. You can see what I've got is too big, so I'm gonna have to change this out. But you hold this still with top dead center and your cams lined up and tighten it up. I don't remember what the book says. It's like 70 foot-pounds, or I don't remember. You torque it and then you're supposed to go another 90 degrees. So that's another project. But let's move on to another thing that no one said anything about when I was doing my research on these. Those are metal shavings underneath the engine going into the truck. This actually takes an oil filter, unlike whatever that crap is off of the side mount. It's not a filter. But anyways, so this over here is what came out of this engine. And this sump, or whatever you want to call it, is what needs to go into this engine for it to work in my Ranger. So it sits up like this, and let's see, goes about like that. I'm going to drop this. You can see there's a hole there now, and there's a hole there now. There wasn't any holes there, so I put both the bolts in here, lined it up, marked it as good as I could, and came down with my drill. I used two different sizes bit. Used an 1/8 inch to punch the hole, get as straight as I possibly could. And then I went up, I think it's a 1364, I don't remember off the top of my head, and drilled them out for the right size. The bolts that go in there to hold it, these came out of the other engine. They're a 6mm by 1 thread pitch. So I got that tap. I used my rapid tap oil. Got the holes poked out, tapped them, And now we're good to put that part in, and hopefully that'll be the end of all the super hard struggles. But thankfully, when you look up under here, I can reach all the way up to the top. There we go. I can feel the top of the hole there where it poked through. So I can be really diligent about cleaning every single speck of any kind of metal shaving out. And all of this stuff, it would have been a whole lot easier to flip the engine upside down and mark it and then flip it, and I just left it just the way it is. I don't want any metal shavings in there at all. Try to keep it as good and clean as possible. Oh, and none of the wiring. The plugs are the same, but when you get a junkyard motor, they cut all of the wiring at the plug. Here's the Ranger setup where these are what was on there. Not the same. They don't go in the same direction. There's something different about all of it. So if you're looking to do this, so the fuel rail, I still have, this is the one that came with this motor. And this is the rail from the Ranger. Everything on it. This is where you're going to hook up your line at the truck. And the intakes, even if they did swap, I haven't seen one come from a wrecking yard that wasn't all busted up. We marked everything as thoroughly and as good as we possibly could. And we're pulling parts off, cleaning them, saving up everything that can be used, swapped, whatever. But yeah, this is more than just a 2-day wham bam get it engine in, which most engines are. Here's the truck. I have projects everywhere. Everything's a project. But this is supposed to get me better fuel mileage. 02 Ranger. These 4-bangers have some pretty decent power compared to the older ones. Pretty nice truck for what I got it at. It's not beat up. It's pretty well taken care of. Brand new clutch with like 300 miles on it before the truck was loaned out. But yeah, there it is. They are interchangeable. It is not a simple, easy swap though. So something to keep in mind. And if you have any questions, we're hoping to have this in. We're right in the middle of hunting season, so we're putting a few hours in and then we're hunting. We're basing it off of as much time as we can put in. That's what it gets. As soon as this thing's going, then we can save some fuel mileage and go a little bit further and check out some other hunt spots. So yeah, 2.3 Duratec. Yes, they will swap.